Hello, these are the 5 need-to-knows for week 5 for the readings of Grimkey and Garrison. So the first need to know is kind of a review about we again talked about the Fresnel light, that in that it represents the complexity of interpretations of the text that we have been reading. And you have to know something about the leaders and where they're situated to understand the context of the text. Um, the Fresnel line also represents the multiplicity of things. So, there's not only one way of seeing all the stories. Just like the typical American story about the pilgrims, it's typical to linearize the story, but in reality, there's multiple ways of seeing it, just like we have been seeing in our readings about Puritans. Um, so the second need to know is about the printing press. Again, this is a little review. The printing press begins to create historic fissures, and it sets its roots in many places. Um, so you get the first interpretation of the Bible, and you can physically read it, so that European serfs can um, connect with God in another way, besides being a serf and being a servant to the King and the Lord. So now you don't have to go through this whole channel of levels or this ladder. Now you can actually just be one with God. So that creates whole new religions and things like that. Um, and the third need to know stems off from the printing press. It begins the Age of Reason, or the Enlightenment, which is a cultural movement that emphasizes the universality of human reason. So you have to start using. So people start using reasoning to make judgments. So now you have the printing press that brings you literature that you can read and interpret yourself. But to make those interpretations, you have to reason. Um, and that brings me to my fourth point with Grimke. Um, and her text is basically saying that we need to know. All we need to do is read the primary source and use reason and engage in reasoning to understand. So she kind of takes the Bible and takes other texts and says, she quotes them and then says, things are we're more equal, um, between genders. We're more equal than we previously thought, just using the original text, because now we're using reasoning to understand them. Um, and Garrison's reading is like a narrative blind spot. He's kind of explaining the new empires and new technologies, which lead to new human conditions or slavery, the slave movement. Um, and it's an economic, political, and social kind of robbery when he starts beginning to talk about abolition, and things like that. So he also is using reasoning. His document is very diverse, and you have to think about its complexity to understand it. Um, and that's all for week 5.